Welcome to our podcast, Life Eventually.
And we are just two women
Working to figure it out eventually.
I am Dr. Alicia Yvette.
I am Melinda Yvette. Welcome back to another episode. Today is a very nice little episode. I have my brother and my sister-in-law, Joshua and Erica Pagan, and we're going to be diving into the military life. Joshua, would you like to give us a description on what your job title is in the military?
Yeah, for sure. So my MOS, my military occupational specialty, is a combat engineer, senior sergeant. The MOS code is 12 Zulu. Basically what that means is I'm the senior combat engineer that's on the ground. I am currently a first sergeant, which means that I manage and take care of 80 to 100 soldiers within a company-sized element. I provide mobility, counter-mobility, and survivability for infantry forces that decide to, close with and destroy the enemy like we're supposed to do in the Army. So when they have a problem, they can't get through something, they call on the engineers to move forward and open that breach or solve that problem so that they can get through and continue to fight for our country.
Awesome. Erica's like, geez, now I got to go after that. So Erica, do you want to give a little bit of a description on what your job title is in this family?
Oh, yes. I have been a stay-at-home mom for many, 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 many years, and I was lucky enough to just graduate nursing school, so now I'm a registered nurse, and
Woo.
I'll be getting a job here shortly, so that's exciting.
That's awesome. All right, let's break it in. Go ahead, Alicia, let's talk.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so excited to meet you. I've heard a lot about you guys from Melinda.
Hopefully good things.
Yes, definitely. I remember when we were in high school, Melinda was in ROTC and she was already talking about like you and your path in the military. So I'm really excited to hear about it and to hear that you're like such an important part of like the actual battle. You're not just sitting in a field just hanging out or, any of the other things. It's like you're really out there helping people move forward.
Yeah, so really right now I want to kind of dive into the beginning. So in the beginning, what was the choice that made you think like, okay, the military is where I want to go? Because I know you joined at 17, right?
Yeah, so I think the motivating factor for me joining the Army was I just wanted a change. I thought that joining the Army would, one, make my mom's job a little bit easier, not having to worry about me once I left from high school. And two, I was one of those kids that, patriotism was a big thing for me. And 9/11 had happened 2 years before I actually joined. And I obviously wasn't able to do anything because I was in high school. And once I hit that age where I can go talk to a recruiter, I immediately went there. It was a call to service for me. It was, I don't know, when I think of serving my country when I was 17 years old, I got goosebumps because I was like, man, I'm going to be one of those guys that can make a difference in the world. So I don't know, I guess that's the easiest answer.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really noble answer too. It's a really great thing that you thought after 9/11, you know what, let me help my country instead of cowering into a ball and saying, absolutely not, I'm not going to do that. That's scary. I mean, because I know there's a lot of people who probably wanted to join the military, and then when that happened was like, okay, now it's a little real. Because at a point in time, there wasn't really anything going on before that. So there wasn't really like, I don't think there was much of a fear to join. It was more so like, this is going to be great for my life. I'll be able to go to school. I'll be able to, help my family. But then when that happened, I'm sure a lot of people were like, wait a minute.
People were afraid of a draft.
Yeah. They were afraid that they would have to actually do something now. Not that they weren't doing anything before. They just weren't doing anything to that magnitude. So I'm sure it was a very scary time, but it was really noble of you to say, you know what, this is what I want to do. And even though this happened, I'm even more fueled to do it.
Yeah, I would also say like the draft idea. Me being in the Army, we don't want a draft.
You don't want people who don't want to be there.
Yeah, for sure. It's an all-volunteer Army for a reason. We get those people that want to serve. And you're right, it changed a little bit once 9/11 happened. It went from people just joining the Army to get college money to now they're really going to earn their college money.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was definitely a huge difference after 9/11, but the draft, my whole career never heard anything about a draft.
Most of it's like just one of those things people say.
I think people start talking around a table at home, and they're like, "Oh, they're going to reinstitute the draft," and it's just I think it's like the locker room talk, I guess, or just the family talk.
I agree. So, what would you say is the hardest moments while working in the military for you?
I think the hardest moments is working with people, because we get so many different people from so many different backgrounds. The United States Army is probably one of the most diverse organizations in the world. I mean, we have every color you can think of in the Army. You have, leaders that are different colors. You have different ways of life. We get
cultures.
Cultures. Yeah, we get a kid like myself that came from the East Coast, and I'm dealing with kids that come from the West Coast. They're two different people. South, north, however you want to play it. So I think dealing with people is the hardest. I think there's a huge HR element that comes with the Army, just because, you just have to deal with those different types of personalities. Soldier issues. Some people join the service because their girlfriend got pregnant, and that's the first time they're away from home, first time living by themselves. Sometimes some soldiers don't even have a driver's license, so we have to basically, I wouldn't say babysit, but we have to, lead them towards, getting themselves right so that they can be an adult and also be a soldier at the same time. So I think dealing with people has always been the hardest part for me, and it gets even, harder the higher I get in the food chain of the Army. It was easier when I was a team leader because I only had 3 soldiers that I had to deal with. It's harder now that I'm a first sergeant and I have 80 to 100 soldiers, all with their own, issues.
Attitudes.
Yeah, issues, attitudes, way of going about things. One thing might work for you, one thing might work for someone else differently. Your approaches have to be different. So dealing with all those people, I think, is the hardest part.
Okay.
So, Erica, could you tell us a little bit about your experience as a young military wife?
Yeah, so I was super young, and I had never left home before. I was always in Arizona. That's where I lived. That's where all my family was. I was used to being surrounded by family. And then when he joined the military, we're kind of just ripped out of that and sent. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. And so it was pretty scary at first. I think now I'm a lot more seasoned as a military spouse. So it's not as scary for me now, but it was definitely scary back then, being very young, being a young mom. So, but I've grown a lot since then.
Yeah. So with the kids aspect, was it difficult in the beginning, especially since you were not at your home base of being in Arizona where everybody was there? What was that like, having to basically parent and be alone?
Yeah, it was definitely challenging because, like I said, I was very used to having that support around me, like my mom, my sisters, my brother, my dad, everybody, like aunts, uncles, just being supportive and helping me raise my child, essentially. But definitely was challenging when we left, and I really had to try to find friends who would become my family and help me in that aspect, because otherwise it's very difficult.
What is it like making friends in a place where you don't know any? Like, I know it's like, it sounds crazy, like, to ask somebody, how do you make friends? Yeah. But I just assume that it would be a little bit more difficult, but then a little bit easier at the same time, because you're going kind of through the same stuff as these people, so they have a bit of an understanding.
Yeah.
Right?
I think initially it's really hard, especially for me, just because I don't let people in very well. I'm very closed off because, like I said, I was used to having my family and they were everything to me. So having to make friends outside of that was very difficult for me in the beginning, especially because I don't trust people as easily. Yeah. But I've definitely learned over the years that you have to let people in. You have to, or you literally can't survive unless you let people in, or you'll just be alone.
Yeah.
I was interested about, you mentioned you're going to nursing school. What made that decision, and what type of nursing would you like to do?
Oh, yeah. So I've always wanted to be a nurse. My older sister's a nurse. She was like the first one in our family to go to college and make something of herself. So she's definitely been my inspiration. So since high school, I've wanted to be a nurse, and I actually just graduated. Woohoo, December 2020,
Yay.
which was crazy going through the pandemic, trying to get my nursing degree. Okay. But I did it. And yeah, so I really, really enjoyed the labor and delivery clinicals that we had. So I feel like I might end up somewhere in labor and delivery with all the babies.
Yeah, that's exciting.
How difficult was it to do the schooling? Because I know you guys are constantly bouncing around in different areas because you're moving like every 3 years, right? So every 3 years you're moving. You also have 3 children and you're trying to do your schooling. You have 2 dogs. You have my annoying brother that you have to deal with on a constant basis. So how stressful and how did you get through that?
Yes. So just being able to get into a nursing school was a miracle in itself, because the fact that we move so much, every time I move to a new college, they want different classes, different prereqs, all of that. So it was great that we were able to actually move to Colorado twice. So a lot of my classes were accepted for that nursing program. So I was actually able to get in finally, only to have him get deployed right as I was starting my first semester of nursing school.
Yikes.
So like I hit panic mode. I was like, Mom, you need to come help me. But yeah, luckily the way I got through it was letting my family know that I was struggling, because at first it's like a prideful thing where you're just like, no, like I'm a military spouse. I can handle anything. My husband's gone. I'm in nursing school. I got 3 kids. It's fine. I got this. But it came to a point where I was like, I need to call my mom. Like, I need my mom. It's okay to have that support. So that's how I got through, really,
Yeah,
just leaning on people.
And I know your mom was there for months
Yes.
and months. So
Yep.
she
was there
really-
till he came back.
Yeah, she
from his
really is
deployment.
the MVP
Yes.
for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So Josh, what would you say as far as being in the military was your personal best moment within it?
I would say that earning the Sapper tab was probably the most proud moment that I had in the Army. Yes, I have a Sapper shirt on right now, just to give everyone some context.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was that, apparently.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was 28 days of fun. I say that sarcastically. The first 2 weeks was general studies or general subjects. The last 2 weeks is called patrolling, where we're in the woods for those 2 weeks, and we only have one little MRE bag, meal ready to eat bag. That's all we can eat during that one day or that 24-hour period. We only have 1 hour to eat, sleep, and do whatever we need to, and then we're right back at it. So needless to say, I lost a lot of weight when I was there. I remember I got home and Erica hugged me, and she was like, "Where did you go?" But it's okay. I found the weight back really quickly afterwards. But yeah, I think that's been my proudest moment in the military. But I mean, I have other things too. Like, getting my master's degree was another achievement while I was in the service. Doing it for free was a very proud moment for me. I had, no student debt. Having my first child with Erica was another great time in my life. Getting married to Erica was another great time in my life. So, I mean, there's a lot of cool things. Professionally, if you want to put it to one thing that's Army,
Yes.
I think earning the Sapper tab and being called a Sapper leader was one of those crowning achievements for me.
Nice. So is there any advice that you would give to someone that's interested in joining any military branch?
Yeah, so I have the great opportunity of being an Army recruiter for 3 years, so I can easily answer that question.
I know. That's why I asked it.
So, I mean, putting my, my affiliation with the Army aside, I would say, going back to 17-year-old Josh, go to every recruiter, go to every service and see what best fits you. I went to every recruiter, minus the Coast Guard. That just didn't appeal to me, to be 100% honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I first started with the Navy. They told me water, and I was like, "Nah, I'm good."
Yeah, me either. I'm all set with water.
Yeah, so I mean, not to say that the Navy is not a great organization. It just I didn't think it fit me.
Yes.
Marine Corps, the glory, the cool commercials, the propaganda that they push out all the time. That appealed to me as a young man because I wanted to be the best. However, when I went to talk to a recruiter, it was one of those things where, and I don't mean this in any disrespect or whatever, it was pitched so hard to me that it's the best thing since sliced bread, and I I didn't believe it. Don't get me wrong, Marines are great. I've served with them in Iraq and all that good stuff. But the way it was pitched to me from that Army recruiter, specifically, Marine recruiter told me that Marines don't get sick. I'm like, come on, man,
Yeah. Yeah.
I got it. And I know Marines, the few, the proud of the Marines, but the honesty piece was big for me. I'm like, I'm not going to give you my life, and I knew I was going to make it a career. Obviously, 18 years later, I'm still here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just, that turned me off big time. Went to the Air Force, just wasn't my speed, and then I went to the Army, and I met the Army recruiter, Staff Sergeant Grandia, and he was honest with me. To this day, I don't think he lied one bit during the process.
Awesome.
He told me I was going to deploy. I did deploy a lot in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I chose the Army based off of going to everyone, figuring out what was available to me. The Army had better promotion rates because we're so much bigger. So if you look at the period of, that's going to be the triangle of the Army, you get the higher ranks up top, lower ranks on the bottom. There was a lot of growth there, and for the other services, I thought that triangle was a lot skinnier. So I was like, look, if I want to do well, I want to get paid and I want to get promoted. I don't want anything holding me back. And I think that in that case, I started leaning towards more the Army and eventually did join the Army.
All right, Josh, I have a more serious question within the military. So with all the sexual harassment that's been going on, that we've seen in the news, that's been published everywhere, how do you personally help with making sure that these things don't happen or get corrected in the station that you're in?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I think Vanessa Guillen, and forgive me if I stated her name wrong, but I think she was the wake-up call for the military in general. Terrible story of how she passed and whatnot, but I will tell you this. The Army is mandated once a quarter to do SHARP classes, so sexual harassment, assault, response program. So we have to do this. We have to talk about these things, and we try to get everyone available during these training sessions in order to explain to them that, hey, this is not acceptable in our Army. If you see it happening around you, this is what you need to do. If it happens to you, whether you're a male or a female, because there's a big misconception that it's only women that get sexually harassed or sexually assaulted. Males get sexually harassed and assaulted as well.
Absolutely.
So we tell them what they need to do if it ever happens to them and how to prevent that action from happening. Whether it's bring a battle buddy with you to a party or something like that. Bring someone you trust. Try not to, drink the world, you know what I'm saying? Because it's going to put yourself in a bad situation. So we try to do a lot of preventative measures. However, people have a decision that they have to make. You have to choose the people that you're with. And if you're around the wrong people, I think with everything, bad things normally happen.
Yeah, and that's true in life.
Yep. And I'm not saying that, Vanessa Guillen's situation is she was around the wrong people. There might have been one bad apple, which I believe there was one bad apple there, and that's what caused this, and it was just a tremendous loss. But I can tell you this, from my company, we 100% push this program to all of our soldiers, and we take our time with this one because I think EO, Equal Opportunity, and the SHARP program are the two biggest things that we're dealing with right now in the Army. So make sure everyone's treated, with dignity and respect, because we have a lot of the LGBTQ X, I think it is now. Forgive me if I misstated that. We have those soldiers in our formation now, and it's okay. It's okay, and everyone should be treated equally and should be treated appropriately. In the beginning, when I joined, it wasn't that way. It was, if you were gay, you had to leave. It was the don't ask, don't tell her. Don't say anything about your sexual preference. Now it's open. Now we have everything and anything in our formation, and it's okay. Yeah. As long as you can serve and as long as you can do great things as a soldier, I really don't care what you do.
Yeah.
Leadership is the thing that I try to provide. And if I can do that by making sure that you have a safe, environment where you can work and be a soldier, whatever orientation that you are, that's what's going to happen. And I think that's a culture that has to be created within your organization. And if it's not serious to the soldiers that are in your organization, then you see a rise of those, things happening in that organization. And I'm lucky enough to be in organizations where there's zero tolerance. I've kicked out numerous soldiers for issues where, bad behavior or whatnot, towards, female soldiers or lower enlisted soldiers or male soldiers and whatnot. We don't play. It's unfortunate that happened, but I think the Army is taking steps to ensure that we're not shortchanging this training, that we're not shortchanging the effects that this can have on a formation. Just think of that formation that lost Vanessa. Mm-hmm. How many women after that had to show up to work the next day wondering if they were safe or not?
Absolutely.
And I feel for those leaders that were there that are legitimately trying to do the best that they can. But unfortunately, this one didn't work out so well. Okay, so again, I just want to tell you that there's so many things that we do to try to prevent these things from happening. And unfortunately, that was a big black eye on the military in general.
Yeah. And I think it's very serious, especially when you have children and you have young girls and you have a son. So you are obviously doing your job, but you also have to think, like, what if one of my kids want to join the military? What kind of environment do I want to leave my children in? So you have to do the work so that you can make sure that your children are safe. Even if they don't choose the military life, they're in it. So you want to make sure that your wife is safe walking in the streets and, being in that area around other soldiers. So I appreciate you giving us, a more broader outlook on what is going on and how they actually deal with a situation as that serious.
Yeah, and just to maybe one last thing, hopefully, I like to talk sometimes. So the other thing I'd like to say is, like, if the question is, should my daughter or should my son join the service, I would 100% every time say yes. Okay, and here's why. So specifically when you think of your daughters joining, okay, there's a huge ratio discrepancy that's in the service in general, right? There's more males than there are females, and in order for representation to happen from the female ranks of the spectrum, right, we need more females to answer the call. Okay, these are things, unfortunately, that happen in our lives. It's happened probably around you, my wife, myself, and unfortunately, it's going to continue. And it sucks that it does. However, the only way that we can beat this is if the representation begins to increase, so that there's more women in our ranks that are saying, this is not going to happen. No, it stops with me.
Yeah.
And if we can do that, and we can get to that point where there are more women in our formation, like, for example, if you want to put ratios in it, I only had probably like 2 or 3 women I'd say like 4 women in a platoon of 31 soldiers. Okay, that's a huge ratio of men to women.
Wow.
Now, if you put in a little more perspective, you might have the LGBTQX community involved in there, and there's probably around like 8 in each platoon. Okay, so still the ratio is still pretty low. Okay, so the more people that join the service, specifically women, I think that a lot of these issues are going to start to go away. It's just, unfortunately, there's a huge ratio discrepancy. And, just think, you deploy somewhere, you have a lot of males, not many females. I'm not saying that's an excuse, but unfortunately, I just think that with more women deploying, that means there's more of a security blanket that's there, because everyone is taking care of themselves. Okay. And I think more women, more LGBTQX joining the service, it increases representation, and that's what everyone is trying to do in the world right now. Increase our representation so that we can respect those people accordingly, and they continue to serve just like every other soldier.
Thank you for that. So let's move on to another question. I kind of want to go back to the kids. So how do you think that the constant moving is affecting your children? This can be answered by both of you guys. How do you both feel?
So constantly moving, obviously, like you read any kind of studies, it's not the best for children. They need that stability and to be able to grow with the people around them. But with that, I think moving around it's not just a negative thing. There's also a positive to it, because when we move, they are surrounded by a military community everywhere we move. So they're not alone in that journey. They're with other kids who are military as well, and they're going to end up moving at some point also. So I think if anything, it's actually made their relationships with people they do become friends with even stronger, because they understand each other so much more. And so they want to stay in touch even through the distance. And so they become like lifelong friends for the kids, versus I think if it wasn't that way, I don't think they would have such a strong connection.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, for the kids, I mean, it breaks my heart every time we have to leave somewhere because they get so immersed in the areas that we're in. I mean, we started in Hawaii together. My son was wearing all the Hawaiian get up and all that good stuff. And my daughter was loving it too, being in dresses all the time, And then to come to Colorado and have friends there, to Wisconsin with the cheese curds and all that good stuff. And back to Colorado, and now we're going to Germany. It breaks my heart that they have to leave their friends. However, I think those are memories that they're going to have for the rest of their life. And I think that that's going to be something that's unusual. When they go to school and my daughter can say, I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Yeah.
But, here in Brockton, for example, hey, everyone here was born in Brockton or, or around the surrounding area. But no, my daughter was born in, Honolulu, Hawaii. So, I think there's pluses and minuses, just like my wife said. But I think we do pretty well with the immersion wherever we go. Like we make sure that they have the tools that they need. The Army provides a lot of counseling, integration tools for the kids, not only kids, I mean adults as well. I mean it's for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think it sucks to keep it plain and simple, but I think we work through it pretty well, especially because we're so positive with the moves. And when we're positive, the kids are positive. They look at more of the positive stuff versus the negative.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on the children. If you have the type of child who's has a hard time with moving, but if they're immersing themselves in each culture, I think that as they get older, it's going to be a really good experience and be able to connect with different people and just have other things to talk about and just know about the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And with that, I get to be immersed into your world as well too, because I've gone to everywhere you've gone. So that's exciting for me. So I get to tell people in Brockton that, yes, I've been to Hawaii, I've been to Germany, I've been to Wisconsin, I've been to Colorado, I've lived in Arizona too, but, not because of you, but I have been there because of you too. But you know what I mean? And my child, though we're not in the military as well, we've also gone to wherever you're going. I mean, in the more recent years. Sophia has been to Colorado. She's been to Wisconsin. I look forward to, at some point, bringing her to Germany. So it's really great for the kids, too, for you guys. But it also is really great for the family because we're getting to go to places that normally I probably would never have went to. And when I went to Germany, I was 14. And, I was there for 2 weeks. And every time I go to a place where Joshua's been, I'm there for 2 weeks because I'm trying to see something. I want to experience something. We went to Hawaii. I'm jumping out of a plane. I'm riding horses. I'm on quads. I've gone to the pineapple maze. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. So it's been a great experience as a sibling that I've been able to go around, and now I get to bring my child on that ride. So it's been fun. So I'll thank you for that.
I think that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
You're welcome.
So with this big move to Germany, what are your plans in the next 5 years?
Holy man.
Retirement.
Yeah, so one of the things, thanks for telling me everything. Let me know which way you're going. So next 5 years. So normally we roll in 3-year increments, right? Because that's how we move. So I would say 3-ish.
Okay.
Because it's been a little bit before, maybe a little bit after. But so I'm at year 17 right now, about to hit 18 in October. So at 20 years, or at year mark 19, I have to make a decision whether I'm going to retire or continue to serve. So I'm waiting till that 19, so next year, 2022, to start thinking about what I want to do, if I want to stay in, or do I want to pursue my what I went to school for. So HR was what I went to school for. So I have to figure that out. However, there's other things that I have to think about as well. So one of the things is my son is going to be a freshman this year. So I am aware that, as a high school kid, you want to be in that one school because you create relationships throughout your high school career. And I want my son to have that 4 years. So I'm willing to stay in longer just for him. because if not, I'm going to pull him out of school
For
probably
senior year.
no or junior year.
Yeah.
So, and I went to Brockton High School, graduated from there in 2003, but I started in Hyde Park High School in Boston, and then I moved to Brockton, and then I started my sophomore year, and I had all these people that had their friends already. I had to find my way in. I found my way in through our JROTC, but I know that was a tough transition. And I don't want to do it to him because he loves and values those relationships with other kids. And like, us moving from Colorado to Germany right now, it's probably affecting him the most because now he's 13.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's like, man, how am I supposed to do these things? And I'm like, well, guess what? There's a thing called Facebook. Nah, that's for old people. So, so Instagram it is, WhatsApp and all these things so that he can stay connected. But, I want him to have his high school years together so that he can make friends. And hopefully once that's done, we'll move back and then have to deal with Athena, becoming a freshman or whatnot. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. So, Erica, what about you? What do you think in the next 5 years, what does that hold for you?
Well, for me, I hope to have my husband retire and buy our first home because we've never owned a home before. So that's going to be a huge thing. And I hope to have some nursing experience by then and be able to work at a good hospital and just live out our days, guys.
Erica, what do you think you've gained so far from the experience of being a military spouse?
Ooh, adventure. Just like a sense of adventure and a deeper appreciation for friends and family. It's definitely because, I never thought I was going to travel the world ever. I never saw that for myself, but now that I get to do it, it's just been amazing, amazing, amazing. Like we just saw the Statue of Liberty the other day, and I was just like a little 5th grade kid again, remembering my history book, like, oh my gosh, and it was right there. So it was really cool. So definitely a lot of adventure and just deeper appreciation for the people that love us and stuff like that.
What advice would you give for someone who's planning on marrying someone in the military?
You need to have a lot of patience. Definitely. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of love, definitely, because, and an understanding that, your husband or your wife is answering a call, right, to our country. And you have to understand that they don't want to leave you when they get deployed. They don't want to leave you when they have to go training. They don't want to leave you, but they have to. That's their job.
Yeah.
So definitely an understanding like that, because a lot of times what I hear, unfortunately, is some spouses will feel like their husbands or wives don't love them because they're gone all the time. But so you definitely need to understand that that's their job. They have to do it.
Yeah, so I'll continue the elaboration on that question, right? so I will tell you that a lot of new service members come into the Army married because, one, they get a little bit of extra pay if they're married. It's called BAS, Basic Allowance for Housing, Basic Allowance for Subsidy. So a lot of kids think that, I'm going to get married with this girl that I just met or guy that I just met about 3 months ago, okay? So they get married because they want to pursue this adventure, which is the Army, and then they haven't had that base set up with their relationship yet. So it becomes like what I've seen in my day as a soldier, right, is that some spouses feel like their husbands don't care for them or their wife doesn't care for them because they're going to the field for 30 days. Like he or she has a choice,
Yeah.
And then I have to, me as the first sergeant, I have to be that guy that helps them get through that, and, again, I talk about the people thing, what's tough, right, in the beginning. Those are the challenges that we have to deal with. Every time we leave somewhere, there's always an issue or there's always something that is wrong of why that soldier cannot go to the field for 30 days or 2 weeks or something like that. And then I have to decipher which are legitimate cases and which are not. And then I have to be the bad guy. But those are the leadership things that we have to deal with. And I think that's the same with, HR and regular jobs and whatnot. You have someone that comes up saying, hey, I need these days off, and you have to make a decision based on the organization and what their goals are and whatnot. So, it's tough for new new marriages because they just don't have the foundation yet. And, I've been lucky to have Erica where she understands everything and she knows that I'm not leaving because I want to. I'm leaving because I have to answer the call. And, we talked about Kuwait and, there's a big joke in the Army, Kuwait's not a real deployment. Cool. Understood.
It felt real.
Understood. But it feels real because I have to leave my wife and my kids. And let me tell you, I was emotional as heck this time. And because, we've grown so much as a husband and wife combo, that, leaving my wife is terrible for me because she's my rock. She's my support system. And my kids obviously are my amazing kids. And me leaving, it's pretty tough. But you know what? Coming back to those beautiful faces and them crying and smiling makes me feel important. So, I hate that I have to leave for 6 months, 9 months, or whatever in order to get that feeling. But, like, for example, my wife cried when she saw me at the airport. Yeah. That was the first time I've seen her cry for me ever, So I know
honestly, this isn't good for your ego because it's so big already. So then to do that on top of it, I could just imagine he's bursting from the seams from this ego.
Well, yeah.
But I had a question as far as your relationship too. How do you guys keep it going when there's so many times where he's being either deployed or gone away for these long training assignments?
Yeah, well, I think I'm one of the lucky spouses because my husband does such a good job at keeping in contact with us when he is gone. So a lot of spouses don't necessarily do that. So I think I'm pretty lucky that he definitely makes us a priority even when he's away. So the kids get to talk to him nearly every day if possible, and so do I. So that's how I would see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, for some soldiers, leaving is a vacation for them. Good, I get to stay away from the wife for a little bit or the husband for a little bit and focus on my profession. I'm the opposite. I have to give. I'm like 50-50, right? I want to give to my soldiers, obviously, but I also love my family as well. So, like, when I went, using the last deployment and in quotation marks to Kuwait, I made sure I got a Wi-Fi puck where I had Wi-Fi everywhere I went so that if she called me or the kids called me, I was always available. Yeah, and I think a lot of times it's the service member is the reason why relationships sour when you deploy because, there's ways. The question is, do you want to stay awake long enough to contact them or do you want to go to sleep?
Yeah, like he was staying up late after like a long day just so he'd be able to talk to us because of the time difference.
Yeah.
So that we appreciated that, especially the kids, especially the youngest one, Eva, because she's obsessed with him. So it would have been a lot harder for her if she couldn't talk to him every day.
So I think, except for those moments where like the phones have to be shut off and all that good stuff, where there is no, it's called being black on communications. Unless you're in those situations, there's always a way to talk to your family, and it depends on the service members' want to communicate to their family.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming here and talking with us and being so open about your experience and life and raising children. Very excited for your trip or the deployment to Germany. You shouldn't call it a trip. It's really not. You'll be living there. It's not a vacation. But thank you for everything you do for our country. We really appreciate it. We'll be releasing this on 4th of July. Commemorate what our soldiers do for us. I really appreciate it.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
You're welcome, Melinda.
You didn't have to do all this. I know you guys are about to leave in a couple of days, so this was a tight, push to get this to happen. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, no problem.
Fielding all our questions.
And with that, we want to let you guys know that life will come together eventually.
Thanks for listening. Tune in with us for our next episode.
Please follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, and Anchor FM. And we're also on Instagram and YouTube, which can be found in the description links.
Make sure you comment and let us know what you want to hear in future episodes.